precisely what Bitcoin does. Okay, it draws power out of this global state mechanism. It converts it to bits. It sends it into the existing version of cyberspace. What you do with those bits, that's up to you. Okay? Bits of information can represent any kind of information, to include, but obviously not limited to, financial bits of information. So if you want to call those bits financial information and name this protocol after your first widely adopted use case, then sure, yeah, call it Bitcoin, right? Coin. But we have to remember that these words are just arbitrary, okay? That those bits of information that store your cat pictures and your emails, we call it a cloud, right? With that infrastructure that we call it a cloud, but it's not really a cloud. That's just how software people chose to describe the thing, okay? So yeah, we can call this system Bitcoin because we are using our super secure bits as financial information as its first use case, but that doesn't limit this system to only being used for financial information. We have to think bigger picture. When ARPANET, when TCP/IP was first created, it was for ARPA, Advanced Research Agency, now known as Defense Advanced Research Agency, okay? It was called ARPANET because the only information passing across TCP at the time was Advanced Research Agency information, okay? We had to learn, oh, okay, well actually once you figure out how to transfer bits of information across cyberspace, that's actually useful for all kinds of bits of information, so we probably shouldn't just call it ARPANET, we should just call it a generic term like internet. And back in the 70s, if you tried to explain this to people, they might have been like, ugh, weird, who is this guy? So here I am in this awkward position of being the guy that, has to talk to people and tell them hey, we could have very well invented a new base layer of architecture of the internet here. Where everyone else was trying to build towards energy efficiency, the Bitcoiners, marched in the opposite direction and deliberately produced an energy-intensive state mechanism for the purpose of security, for the purpose of increasing the cost of attacking you and exploiting you, for the purpose of imposing physical constraints, because that's the only way to do it. Okay? We converted large sums of real-world physical power to bits so we can project power in from and through cyberspace. I would argue that the more technically correct term for this protocol would be bit power, because we're literally just converting power to bits, right? Pulling watts out of the environment and digitizing it, and then passing that information across cyberspace, okay? And it just so happens to be the case that a first really good use case of bit power, of power converted to bits or physically expensive bits of information, i.e. very secure bits of information, it just so happens to be that a first obvious use case of this is for financial information, okay? And so for whatever reason, we've adopted the habit of calling it Bitcoin, just like we first called the internet ARPANET, just like all these other reasons. So just try to keep that in your mind here, because I think that Bitcoin is grossly undervalued if this is correct. Okay? If it is true that society has just figured out a way to project power in from through cyberspace to secure our data and our control over our data in this new domain, if this is the architecture to do it, and if it's being widely adopted across the globe to include entire nation states are now using this, then this is a way bigger deal than just Bitcoin. This is a way bigger deal than just peer-to-peer internet cash. This could transform how human civilization organize and train and equip and do business, okay? This could revolutionize the theory of warfare, right? This theory of a bunch of people imposing physical constraints on other people in multiple domains to secure themselves and the resources they value, okay? We may be transcending this concept of a nation state in the first place, because the thing about cyberspace, it doesn't care about geographical boundaries. What I see is a bunch of people standing up, choosing to run this system, choosing to physically constrain people who are trying to exploit them through cyberspace. Okay, I see something that is a much bigger deal than just coin. That being said, obviously, if you create the most secure thing, if you create a completely new foundational architecture of the internet, which allows people to actually physically constrain each other to keep themselves secure. Obviously, a first great use case for that is to protect your financial information. Okay, but it wouldn't just be limited to that. And I think we're starting to see it with what you see with Noster, with what you see with these other, all the work that we're doing on Lightning and stuff. Like, we're going to see this protocol used for far more than just financial use cases, and we have to prepare for it. And as the National Defense Fellow, my job is to basically tell the higher-ups, hey, like, this is important. And the last thing I'll say, I'm almost out of time. This is the part where I have to remind, this is the good part, because I have to remind you that everything I'm saying here is my personal views and does not reflect the position of the Department of the Air Force or the Department of Defense. Okay, so just for the record, right? How do I say this carefully? I'll just say this. Bitcoin didn't cause a bunch of bankers to do fractional reserve lending. I think we can all agree about that, right? Bitcoin didn't cause a bunch of bankers to take too much leverage. Bitcoin didn't cause bankers to debase savers and to destroy the purchasing power of the currency, to bail out the bankers who are fractionally reserve lending and taking too much leverage, okay? Bitcoin didn't kick entire sovereign nations off of an international payment system. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind, right? If you're an architect of a financial system, then it's your responsibility to not motivate people to leave that financial system, which means don't debase them. Don't continue bailing out the people who are making the mistakes. Don't kick entire sovereign nations off this thing. Like, it's your responsibility to not do that if you want to maintain like the dominant financial information network. Okay, don't blame Bitcoin for your, I almost said something bad. Don't, I'll just leave it at that, okay? So, and by the way, if this is more than just a coin, right? If this is BitPower, if we have no kidding, again, this is theory, I could be crazy, I'm relying on other people to evaluate, that's how computer science works, computer theory works. If we have no kidding figured out a way to project power in from through cyberspace, a new physical power projection protocol that will transform cybersecurity and national security, then blaming Bitcoin to protect your failing hegemony, let's call it for what it is, okay, that's not going to help you. It's still going to break down. Like, your financial system is still going to collapse as long as you keep on doing the things that I just said, okay? What you would actually be doing is you would be forfeiting our access as a nation to this protocol, to BitPower, okay? You would be denying us access to this future. And that would be a strategic nightmare. That would be worse than China burning their merchant naval fleet because it threatened the existing power class, in my opinion. That's if this is true. Again, could be crazy, and again, this is only my personal views. These are what I recommend based off my research. But it's like, let's not forfeit the keys to the kingdom, right? Let's not try to use Bitcoin as the scapegoat to our collapsing system, if it is collapsing, not saying it is. Right? Let's think about this strategically and set this nation up for success in the future. This could be a much bigger deal than coin. And I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Jason.